Hello, everyone.
Howdy, everybody.
April sounds so peppy today. This is what April, so I know April's always just so full of life and energy. This is what April sounds like when she's exhausted. She's not feeling so hot.
I ate some bad sushi, I think, and I'm not going to say from where because I don't want to do that. But I have some tummy troubles today.
Yeah, so she's going to be a little more on the mellow, quiet side, which is unusual. And maybe this is a great opportunity for you to just recharge a little bit, Chip.
I didn't even go to the gym today. I skipped. I was on my way, and I was like, I can't do it. I couldn't imagine bouncing around. I was like, I have to go rest.
That sounds terrible.
But I'm here to record this podcast because it's an amazing topic. Yes. I'm super excited to learn and to talk with this person because you've said great things about him. And so I'm here. I'm showing up for you and for you and for you.
She's fully here. And with that, we do have another guest speaker. We have so many awesome guest speakers. This guest speaker I talked about 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 podcasts ago. I don't exactly remember. And I was talking about the Inarguable truth, which is kind of a new communication process that I learned from this wonderful person who is a life and relational guide who did some work with myself and my partner. And I also have a number of friends who see this person for their own relationship work. And it was really profound, and I was really excited to share it with you all, but I understand that because I'm still practicing, it wasn't this perfect share. So we invited Shems Heartwell to come on our podcast to share with you. So before we introduce Shems, I'm going to tell you a little bit about who Shems is, and then we will dive right in. So Shems Heartwell is a life and relational guide who specializes in personal and relational empowerment. His work goes to the core of what is needed for embodied transformation by integrating the physical, mental, sexual, emotional, and spiritual. And you can find out more about him at Shems Heartwell, and that's HEART, Heartwell.com. Welcome, Shems. We're so happy to have you here. Woo!
Welcome, Shems.
Thank you. Great to be here. I like to be, I'm this guy, like this particular guest. It was great how many times you referenced that.
We're super excited about that. And Shems is calling in from the wonderful island of Maui, correct? Is that where you are right now?
Mm-hmm, I am, and it's glorious here today.
Lucky. It's pretty nice here right now. California is craving some cold and rain.
I know, it's kind of LA style over here, but Maui's my favorite island. It's the most magical island.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing. Incredible. So Shems, dear listeners, April and I have discussed that we would like to kind of reframe the podcast in the beginning to give you more of the information about why this topic is important. And when I say the inarguable truth for communication skills, you're probably like, what does that mean? So Shems, before we dive into what this is, why is this process for communication so helpful? Why is it important? Why would people want to incorporate that into their relationships?
Yes. Well, so much of the conflict that couples experience or with anybody is because we go back and forth from our minds, from our thoughts, from our stories, from our projections of what we think's happening with the other. And speaking the inarguable truth is a way of getting into a deeper knowing inside of us, but also being able to communicate in a way that we get heard on what's truly happening for us. And we're not saying like, you did this to me, but I'm experiencing this right now while I'm with you. And it just immediately begins to dissolve conflict. And it's so easy for us to go back and forth and not get anywhere. And when we speak the inarguable truth, it's like we start to build a bridge of really getting a sense of like, where are we at right now? Where am I at with you? And it opens up in some ways a new pathway for us to relate relationally that's more holistic or more of our entire experience inside of us. I'd say it's more integrous of like being able to communicate from our body sensations, from what emotions are present, and not just our thoughts about what's happening.
So it helps us to get away from the stories, which tend to get in the way, and then also from blame language, and to actually just speak what really is present in our bodies as a means for deeper connection and communication.
Absolutely. It's very easy that we make assumptions of what the other person is doing or saying to us, and we're not really sharing what's actually happening inside of us. And that creates defensiveness and often a holding back and tension and an easy way of doing tug of war instead of like building a stronger connection.
And this was interesting for me to learn about because April and I always preach empowered language. So speaking from the me or the I, the how I feel, as opposed to you made me feel this way, like what you're saying. And when I did this session with you, it was almost like empowered language 2.0, this inarguable truth thing. And it took it to a whole next level in the way that we can convey the me and the I, because I could tell that my I feel was still very much stuck in story, or I've coming from my head, as opposed to the somatic experience of my body, which still could definitely created some defensiveness. So for all of our listeners who have heard us talk about empowered language, just understand that this is a master's class or version of it. It's just really, really refined. I love that. It was really helpful.
Yeah, we're communicating on so many levels. We're just not conscious of all of them. We're saying words, but we're also, even though we're across the airwaves right now, or the Wi-Fi waves, internet world, yet there's still exchanges between us. Even my body language, on some level, your system can sense. And when we're relationally with someone, it's amplified so much more. And so, yeah, this is the 2.0 version of how do we become more expressive of our full experience and be able to take in our partners and not just be caught on what we're trying to understand, but actually what we're truly experiencing.
So can you tell us what is the inarguable truth then? Can you define it and describe it, and maybe, I guess, how you did for me when you taught me about it?
Great. Well, let me start with where I got it from, because I want to honor my teachers in a certain sense. And I have spent many years mentoring and studying with Gay and Katie Hendricks, and they have a whole piece of work around body intelligence, relationship skills, and many books. And so I spent years kind of traveling the country and even the world with them, training and mentoring and doing their leadership training. And so one of their core principles is, how do we communicate what's really going on in our whole being? And so the inarguable truth is a way that they use to help couples in some ways communicate more deeply and more fully. And as I've used it over the last 15 years, it's been that long since I started working with them, I've kind of learned my own way of understanding it too. Like everything evolves as we learn and use things. And so the way I best describe it is that we do our best to share what's actually happening on us, like what is unarguable. So if I'm hanging out with you and I have something up, if I say, you always do this, or you always say this, that's very arguable. But if I say, when you said that to me, I noticed my chest got tight. I actually I stopped breathing in my belly. I started to feel kind of hot in my body. And I have this impulse to want to move away from you. Or I have this impulse to want to, ask you more about that, what's going on for you. And so there's a lot of layers to speaking the inarguable truth. But the primary part is that I'm really giving you a viewpoint of what's going on inside of me in relation to you right now. Rather than making assumptions about what's going on for you, I'm saying something that you couldn't argue about if I say I'm not breathing very deeply right now. I stopped breathing, or I'm not breathing deeply, or I'm feeling tightness in my chest. There's no reason for you to say, no, you're not feeling tightness in your chest. But if I tell you, you're never on time, you're always late, you're probably going to go, well, I'm late not that often, actually. You'd have a lot to argue about. And so relationally, we get caught in these things of saying statements or blanket statements that make claims that are easily argued or the other person won't agree upon. And what we do by presencing our experience is we share a deeper layer of what's actually happened to me when you say this, or when you turn away from me and pull away, I notice I get scared. I feel emotionally scared. Something in me goes, oh no, what's going on? Where's she going? What's happening? And if I share that with you, I noticed when you pulled away, I got scared. It offers for us to start exploring what's going on. And maybe then I go, why are you pulling away? What's actually happening? I can ask you a question rather than say, why do you keep pulling away from me? What's going on from you? I could say, I notice I'm scared because it feels like you're pulling away. So the inarguable truth keeps bringing it back to what's happening inside of me in relation to you. Not just my thoughts and stories, but my physical experience in my body, anything that changes. If I get tense, if I get hot, if I start sweating, or my emotional experience, I'm feeling a little bit sad or scared, or I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling frustrated, I feel my body getting tight and I'm wanting to fight back with you about this. All of those things help to dismantle. And the third layer is that we share the thoughts we're having. Like I'm having the thought that you're going to pull away again versus you are pulling away again. There's a big difference between those two, because if I'm having the thought you're pulling away, it's not arguable. So there's three primary areas we speak of the unarguable truth. One is body sensations, physical experience. Two is our emotional landscape, like I'm feeling scared, I'm feeling tight, and that's often related with a body sensation. If I feel sad, I might feel something around my chest. If I feel scared, I might have a tightening in my body somewhere in my belly. If I feel angry, I might find my posture changes. I start to close down, or I start to get big, or I start to heat up. And then we share the thoughts we're having, basically, that are being authentic with like what's going through my mind right now, rather than believing the thought and saying it's for sure true. I'm sharing my internal experience. Is that easy to follow in how I'm describing it?
Yeah, that makes sense. Does it make sense to you?
It does. Yes. I love that.
Yeah. And what? Okay. Well, actually, I'll let you continue. I've actually a question to follow up, but I'll let you continue if you had anything to continue in explaining what it is.
Yeah, that's the basis of it. And what it makes it easy to understand is having some modeling of it. So one way we can do at some point here is for you and I to play with it a bit, Amy, as if we had something up, so that we give some examples, because the best way to teach it is by example, is to have it seen and for me to give some examples. So that might be a good thing for us to do.
Yeah.
As far as adding more what it's about, it's consistently about also, in some ways, I'm responsible for my experience. So if I say, I'm angry because you did, that's actually arguable too. There's a good chance it's true, but the truth is I'm angry. Mm-hmm. And it seems to me that I'm angry because you said this, or because you ran out the room. More responsible way of communicating is that I'm feeling angry, and it feels like it's because you did this, but truly I'm angry right now. Mm-hmm. And what I'm wanting is I'm wanting to feel close to you. I'm wanting to release this anger and feel connected to you again. Or I'm wanting to express it all the way. So the inarguable truth turns into a way of making the connection stronger or moving forward together in a way that resolves what's happening. So it's a complete package. Is my intention of being authentic and honest and speaking what's going on and naming my experience is because I want to have resolve with you. I want to become closer with you. I want to release what's ever up for me that's getting in the way of my heart being open to you. So that's the purpose of it. Ultimately has this realm of I'm wanting to be in high quality relationship with you. Mm-hmm. So I'm getting more authentic, more real, more honest of my experience, because I know that's going to help us move forward together.
Yeah. So who doesn't want that? Quality relationships, closeness. And I know that was one question that I was going to ask you, and I'll after we can model our process. But we actually just did a podcast on attachment styles and attachment wounding, and we were talking about avoidance and that I do have a question about that, because I know for some people it's just hard to feel and it's hard to understand what your feelings are. So we can do that as well for a moment, just if you have some tips on that, but maybe some examples on what the process looks like of speaking your inarguable truth. And one last thing before we actually practice is this is something to be clear. When something comes up, we speak our inarguable truth and we with another person or other people, and we keep going back and forth with our own inarguable truths to each other until it diffuses the fear, the hurt, the anger, or when do you notice when to stop?
Yeah, so a couple things. One thing is to know to give each other space to feel if a feeling is there. So if I say to you, I'm like really angry, and in this, you might say, okay, like I hear you're angry, and are you willing to feel that all the way right now so you can be present with me? So one movement of stopping to go back and forth with the inarguable truth is actually to encourage that person to go all the way with their feelings. If I'm frustrated, I might need to move and express this through my body, and in like a minute or less too. It's not that we have to have some huge, long emotional expression. But if I'm really with myself and with what's happening with me, and I give it complete attention, and I feel it, and I move, and I'm with anger, for instance, all the way, it's going to move through me relatively quickly. Mm-hmm. The reason emotions often keep recycling and it feels like we're sad forever or anger won't go away is because we're actually caught in our head and we create like a trauma vortex where we keep having thoughts that re-stimulate the emotion rather than really feeling the emotion all the way through us. Mm-hmm. And so that's one thing that closes it. The other is that we always want to move to like, what do I want with you right now? So we might hear each other of what our inarguable truth is, and then my truth might be is that what I'm wanting is I'm wanting to feel connected with you. And is there anything I can do to have that happen? Mm-hmm. So once we've heard each other and there's some space for us to be exchanging and we're really giving each other permission to feel what's happening and there's space for it, it's accepted, like, okay, that's your experience. Then there's space for us to have a want, to have a desire met or a need met. Like my need is to feel really safe with you when you're angry, to feel comfortable in myself. And a lot of that's in my is my responsibility to source my safety. And it's also your responsibility to move your anger in a healthy way that doesn't turn into an attack at me or a big thing of blame or some form of aggression. But your anger is welcome if you're not directing it at me, but you're willing to feel it and move it through you. Mm-hmm. So the whole purpose of the Inarguable Truth is to get to a place where we're creating a new movement by being authentic, feeling, expressing, and being clear about what we want with the other. You're right, it's difficult for us to feel often, and for some people it's really hard. Like the mind is so well developed and activated, and we're so familiar. It's like the mind is the major freeway that's going through the big cities, and to get it back all the way into our body and emotions is like getting on the scenic route that takes a long time to get to sometimes. And to enjoy and to be slow, or it's going to take a lot longer to get where we want to get to that way. It feels that way. What I say, the reason that the Unarguable Truth is so effective is let's just simply start with like what's actually happening in my breath and my body. Because maybe being sensitive to which particular emotions are happening is harder to get in touch with. But if we really check in, I'll know right away whether I'm tight in my body or whether I'm relaxed. Whether I'm pulled back a little bit or shut down or like contracting somewhere, or whether I'm open, if I can feel my body soft and open, my posture's open to you. And so that's a truth, is like right now I can feel that my body's closed down to you, like I'm tight in my chest, I feel my shoulders rolled forward to protect my heart, versus the opposite would be, yeah, I feel big and open and expressing, and I want to keep moving toward you. So I don't think it's hard for anybody to feel the sensations in their body if they're willing to. What's hard is that we kind of are addicted to the thoughts in our head and saying them, and they're going so fast inside of us that it's hard to disengage that and actually change gears and be attentive to the bodily experience or the emotional experience.
So when your body is triggered and you, by whatever action or interaction you're having with your partner or person, you're recommending the first step is to tap into your body and sort of breathe through that opening up and kind of getting in a more comfortable space. It starts with that.
Yeah, it would be first, maybe with the partner, it might be just even being real enough to name it. Like I notice my body's tight and tense. And then once I've like named it, I've put it into the light in some ways, we both are aware of it now, then I can like, all right, I'm tight. What could I do right now to really let that start to relax so I can, be more fully with you? And so, yeah, that would be breathing more deeply. It's basically, it would come down to regulating the nervous system, which I'm sure you probably both know really well. The Unarguable Truth is actually kind of a doorway and an invitation to like, let's regulate our nervous system together while we're doing this, while we're in this situation together.
That's really helpful for me because it's quite often hard for me to find the words to describe what I'm feeling. And when I do, I think it just contributes to pulling me in my head if I'm not fully in my body yet. So if I just describe, right now I'm feeling really small, or the desire to crawl in a little ball, or the desire to run and hide, but I'm not going to because I want to stay in connection with you. And then from there, I can usually go into the more of the feelings, like I'm feeling fear or sadness, or but starting with the body is really easy. And I like that point that you stated that anyone can use that. So for folks who have a hard time describing their feelings or feeling their feelings, like what Shems is saying, I think is really helpful to just feel your body, and just starting with describing that and going from there will be really helpful.
Yeah. The biggest hurdle I've seen in speaking the inarguable truth is that we often, when we're in a tense moment with someone, we want to prove that we're right, that our viewpoint of what's happening or what that person did is right. And we kind of can easily get caught just not backing out of that versus being, it's like Katie would often tell me, Katie Hendricks would say, we're either right or we're open to learning. And so when we're caught in the right one, we're not really open to learning. We just want to be right. We just want to be heard. We just want to make sure that our point gets across. And that's a limited way of relating. So the inarguable truth is a way of dismantling that by being, no, I'm more curious about what's really going on here in my body, in my experience with you. And I'm curious, why is this happening? What's this really about? Because most tensions or struggles are not usually about what we think they're about. They're about something else that's going on at a deeper level, which might be a core want or a need or something that we actually need to do for our own selves. And that has nothing to do with the partner. That's very common too, how we take care of ourselves. And speaking the inarguable truth is a gateway into all of that. Because if I stop and check in and I notice I'm pulling away and I'm tight and I'm disconnected from you and my body, well, then I'm taking responsibility for my experience. And then I'm starting to notice if I start presencing that and being with that, and feeling that and making it okay that I'm tight in my body, that I don't have to get rid of it, but I'm naming it, I'm being with it, I'm being with you with it by staying connected on some level, I'm already starting to allow something new to start to move and happen inside of me. I'm already being my own medicine in a certain way.
And I would imagine that would also assist in the person that you're working with in energetically shifting it, taking your own responsibility, therefore shifting the feeling of blame, even if you're not using blame language, the feeling of I'm doing something wrong, and I'm causing this to this person, and instead, because this person is going through their own processes and taking care of themselves, then it would probably assist that.
Absolutely. Very often, when we aren't being pointed at for doing something wrong or shamed or having anger or aggression directed at us, it's a lot easier to be like, oh, I could see why when I said that it was hurtful to you. Versus if we're being shamed or pointed at or attacked in some way, or there's aggression coming at us, blame, we're often going to have some unconscious defense mechanism like a force field come up. And then we're not going to really be willing to see our part so much because the energy coming at us from our partner is so much bigger and harder to handle that we immediately protect. Mm-hmm. And so this is a gateway for exactly what you just said. We start to create a safer quality of being together that both people start to be more relaxed with one another, to be honest and share. Mm.
Yeah, and this is all coming from some childhood wounding too.
Often.
Yeah, a lot of that defensiveness and that desire to always be right, and the blaming language and things are all, often the conditioning that we received that was never ours, but now some of us are trying to undo.
Yeah, and it's what's been modeled. I mean, I don't know, where I grew up, there was all these soap operas on during the day, and my grandmother and my mom would watch them and stuff, and they're full of tons of drama and blame and no responsibility. And so there's modeling that we've had, this is what we've seen that people do, and we don't see a lot of movies or television with high quality modeling of responsibility. I mean, look at the male archetypes that are most famous in our culture, right? They're kind of bravado, and there's a new wave happening obviously now, but you're right. Even if we haven't been traumatized necessarily in our childhood, we've grown up kind of in this enculturation that basically doesn't really live in reality around communication and responsibility and healthy relationships.
Mm-hmm. So it's just one big life soap opera.
It's a lot of drama. And then we love watching these reality TV shows, which are often full of a lot of drama and people not having very good skills in relationship and things like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's not your fault, people. It's not your fault. Yeah, and have compassion for yourselves and for the processes that you're currently going through. And if you're on the path to shift different behaviors, then there's so much available to you. But yeah, compassion for sure. This is an important key here. It starts with the self, and loving yourself and understanding where a lot of this comes from is really helpful.
Well said. And that's another thing is when we come into agreement about speaking the inarguable truth, it definitely is something we want to create an agreement with people. We can do it ourselves, but it's nice to have a place where we both are having the intention. Then we can have a lot more compassion for ourselves and our partner while it's happening.
Compassion is just the best medicine. And of course, it's hard to tap into. Like for myself, when I'm feeling my defensiveness or my hurt, or my protectiveness of myself, compassion can be a hard thing for me to tap into. And whenever I do, starting with myself and then for others, it's a game changer. It really is a medicine for the mind, body, and spirit, and especially when it comes to connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you want to do a little inarguable truth example?
Yes, and here's how I want to do it. Let's first do a drama-rich one with lots of blame, and then let's shift gears and then do one on the other way. Does that sound good?
Yeah, so it's you and we're going to be blaming.
Let's do it. Let's take turns and have some kind of created conversation right now about how you're always late and you always make me wrong for it. And then when I try to tell you about it, you get all defensive and angry at me, and then you turn into this raging, intense woman.
Woo! Raging, I want to do that. Sounds fun. All right, you can do this. Shems, I'm getting really sick of this. Every single time we schedule a podcast or a call, you come late. It's like you don't even care. You just do whatever the fuck you want.
Me? You think this is about me? This is about you. You didn't make a clear agreement with me. If you want me to be on time,
agreements. I don't even know what you're talking about, agreements. I was very clear. I sent you an email. The email said 2:00. You showed up at 2:05, just like last time.
You didn't get the Skype
Always
thing
do this.
2 minutes before. You didn't even befriend me on the Skype thing, and you expect me to be on time?
Oh, God. You didn't befriend me first.
Is that enough?
Yeah, that's good.
You did it first.
Don't we love this stuff? It's so good.
I know. It was kind of fun to just be able to be ridiculous. April's looking, her eyes are all wide, like, whoa.
When I work with couples, often I will actually encourage them to do this first, to make it louder and bigger and more intense, and then change gears.
I like that.
It creates a little bit of play, right? We're not really serious, but it brings up the emotional play, So
I actually just, and it was just a little side note before we go into the next piece. I did this with my partner where we were actually in a little bit of this argument that we were right before bed. Seems to be a prime time for this, and there was just something that came up, and we both started doing this. We what it is we're meeting each other, right? We're meeting each other with the playful anger, because this we were staging, but we somehow both just dropped in this place and we just started saying things like you're such a control freak, da, 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 and we're just allowing while there were smiles on our faces, and it was just, we knew where we were going with it as kind of like this unloading, and then it just turned into this laughter and an I love you and this big hug, and it was a really, really powerful practice. So
good to hear that. And I've seen that many times. As long as we get into play and exaggeration, often we create new movement.
Yeah, especially when we know we're on the same page.
Yeah. The other thing, another thing to add to it, sometimes we switch roles and play each other's character. It can be really great that way too.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother conversation, but it's a valuable one.
I want to do that. Sounds fun. Be
good.
Fierce.
So if we took this into how we would transform this, is that I could just start by saying, I actually feel a little scared I'm going to be late for our call today because I didn't get the Skype contact.
Oh, am I following up with you? Sorry.
Yeah, you get to respond to that.
He says again, you're still not listening. Okay, so say that one more time. Go one more time.
Yeah, so I feel a little scared that I didn't get the Skype contact in time, and I might be late for our call, or I may have missed something. I noticed I got a little tight in my belly for a moment.
Yeah, I'm feeling an intense tightness in my chest, and this desire to kind of shut down and retreat.
You can hear that. When I hear you say that, I want to just take a deep breath, okay. So immediately when we're this vulnerable, my next impulse is to be is there any way I could support you so you don't feel like you need a retreat, but that you could stay close with me? See how quickly it goes to that place?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I got so authentic and real. There was no blame with you in any way. And then you did the same thing. You're sharing an authentic experience where I'm like, okay, all right, how could I be here for you then, or with you? Or how could I show up that would create a supportive place so you felt more comfortable with me?
And that would take for you to get out of your own process, because you were going through your own thing too. Like you're in a fear place too. And then I say, I'm feeling this tightness and this desire to retreat. You're essentially stepping outside of your process and like, all right, I'm here to support you.
Yeah. And well, what happened for me in just speaking it is that it diffused it pretty hugely for me.
Yeah.
To just being honest and sharing it. That's not always the case for all of us. But not that obviously we're not totally in a real tense moment because nothing really happened.
Yeah,
However,
I don't really want to go hide.
And when I heard yours, I was like, okay, you want to go hide? Like I noticed that I did just want to take a breath and create a bit more of a safer space for you to be with me. Because even if I was scared, it didn't mean I wanted you to go away.
And I liked what you did too. I didn't do it. I didn't give a big pause after you shared your what you were feeling, and you did a nice pause and took a deep breath. And I like that because it helps me to feel like, all right, they're making space for my process.
Good. And so great that you just named that, because that's an essential part. Is that we really let each other's experience land. That we give some space to validate and honor. That's the experience they're having. Okay. And so that we do feel heard, we feel somewhat met with simply someone's availability and attention.
Yeah. And
this is a lot easier in person too, versus being over the phone or Skype.
Oh yeah. And also when it's the real life heightened experience. But I mean, even right now in this process with you, it wasn't this huge, it was this playful explosion, yet somehow in the way that we're speaking right now, that vulnerability and that meeting of each other, I do feel my whole body and my system feeling a lot more calm. I feel really safe, and I do feel heard and connected.
Yeah. It's beautiful you said that as well, because I would say that one of the biggest values of doing therapy work or sitting with a coach or a relationship person, it's not necessarily always what's said and all that. It's having a safe space for your experience to have permission to have it. And so if we can do that relationally together, like what I spend quite a bit of time teaching couples, how do you create a safer space that each of your experience is welcome? And that we can provide enough space that I could have fear and be comfortable with your anger. That I can have both happen at the same time. And that's like building muscles inside of us that have a bigger capacity to give ourselves permission to feel what we feel, but then to give the other permission to feel what we feel. And that's one of the reasons I think therapy and stuff can be really helpful, among many others. But it's a very important one, because oftentimes things aren't said or communicated or are held back or withheld because the space doesn't feel safe. We're afraid of our partner's reaction.
Yeah, that permission piece is huge.
Yeah,
it's profound. It feels it's definitely it's a something that I think people crave. They're deep down on like a soul level to just feel like they are okay and allowed to feel what they feel.
Yes.
There's this book that I've been reading that talks about the inarguable truth, but in business, called Conscious Business. Have you ever heard of that book? It's by Fred Kaufman.
I haven't read that book. I was just thinking you're going to speak about the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership, which are some friends of mine wrote that book.
Oh, yeah. He's all about conscious leadership and conscious business, but he talks about how in the office place we can use these same truths, not necessarily tapping into the body, but creating a space where it's inarguable because it's how you feel, instead of, which I think is a really important thing. And it just struck a chord with me. And I like that, because if you're in a business situation, it's a bit harder to tap in with your partner to be like, are you here? Do you have space for me? How can I support you? But can you give me specifically in business, for instance, like a scenario where sometimes things aren't going your way and things do get heated? Is there anything that you can do just on your own versus having to tap into someone that maybe not on the same page as you?
Good. What I'm hearing you say is, how do I regulate my nervous system in a business situation where maybe I can't be that real and honest with somebody? Is that what you're asking?
Exactly.
Somewhat, yeah, because there's two sides to that. One is like, am I willing to be really honest with the people I'm working with and create more of a powerful container? And sometimes that doesn't work, right? If it's your boss, it's hard to confront your boss for being an asshole, right?
Yep.
It's just hard.
She's not saying her boss is an
so
asshole.
It may not go so well. So you have to actually digest your anger in a healthy way so it doesn't get misdirected in some other way and you don't carry it with you for the next 3 days, right?
Right, exactly.
That's kind of what you're asking for. So the model I use is it's the same kind of thing as like, am I willing to give myself a minute to really express and feel what's going on in me? And that might not look big, but it might just be that I stop and I really use my breath to move, blood and aliveness through my body and to exhale all the way. So I'm truly letting go. Every exhale is an opportunity to kind of relax the body and recalibrate or reset our nervous system every single time. So if we really think about it that way, it's like if I truly exhale, I can soften my muscles and let go. And someone may have said something to me in a business situation that really hurt or really triggered like the place in me that feels angry and needs to like defend and protect myself. And I've experienced this a lot with clients over the years. And so I encourage people sometimes to go out somewhere and have kind of a rant, like move that energy somewhere else, like put something that represents your boss and actually like be angry for 30 seconds and let yourself have that anger. Because it's like a lot of what trauma is that we didn't have a safe space to follow our impulse to protect ourselves, to stop something that was happening. If you're a little kid and your dad's hitting you, you couldn't have stopped him. But as we get older, one way we clear trauma out of our nervous system is that we be able to protect ourselves. We be able to have a big enough expression to our body for a quick moment so that we complete what didn't get to happen, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. I'm going to try to do that. I think leaving the situation, perhaps being like, I need a bathroom break, and then going and tapping in and tuning into my breath would be good.
Yeah, and so in the moment with the person, so if you can't leave the situation and something fires you, like in the moment fires up your nervous system. So what I do then is I ground myself more deeply. I slow myself down. I feel into my body. I breathe down into my belly. And I basically do the opposite thing that the fight or flight method would do to me. I start to slow down instead because I watch my mind will speed up. My breath will speed up. My body will tighten up. I'll start to have all the responses in my nervous system kind of like lights going off all the way up to my head. And I'll do the very opposite. I'll slow myself down. I'll relax my spine a little bit. I'll start to ground myself more into my physicality, feeling my bones, deepening my breath, grounding and anchoring the mind that starts to go fast into my experience. So I'm consciously feeling my experience while staying engaged with who I'm talking with.
Does that help, April?
That does. Yeah, that helps.
I'll feel deeper into my experience and I'll get, and this is a master practice right here. If someone's immediately attacking me, it's like, this is what a martial art master does, right? They have the ability to kind of stay calm, stay present, and move highly skillfully. And so we're talking about being able to do that in life in every moment, That's how we avoid car accidents and stuff, is that we stay calm and we move super consciously and swiftly, and we trust the flow state in us to be able to respond in healthy ways.
This is April. You need to be a life ninja.
Yes.
Trust the flow. I like surrender to the flow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is great. So much useful stuff. April's always a little on the business side of things. She's always like, so how do I incorporate this into like my hustle in the business game? Because that's what she does.
Good. Well, that's important. I mean, that's real stuff. That's on the front burner of your life that you deal with all the time. It's not going away, right? You might as well become masterful at it.
Mm-hmm. What other offerings do you do? So, I mean, we did this, you said that you work with couples, and I mentioned that I worked with you as well, with my partner, but what other offerings do you have? I know you do other work with specifically with men.
Right now I'm leading something called the Men's Passage, which is a 3-month program for men, and I have men from all over the world in it. And so I'm going to finish that up later this month, and then I'm going to launch another one in the spring. So it's this whole program online using Zoom, interactive and experiential. I'm like teaching core practices, and it's centered around 3 things. One of them is our vitality and ability to kind of stay in our raw, primal, empowered, masculine energy and accessing that in our life so that we're just switched on, basically our dimmer switch on all the way. Second is, how do we do the shadow work? How do we face the places where we hit challenges, avoidances, keep repeating the same issues over and over again, working with that. And the third is relationship skills. So I've built this awesome program. This is my first one running it. It's been incredibly successful and amazing. So I'll be doing more of it. So I do that, and then I lead retreats and do rites of passage work on Maui. Like people come and work with me intensively here, and we go to really beautiful waterfall spots and nature places, and I help people connect with their nervous system and rewire their nervous system, whether it's a couple doing that together relationally, or I do that quite a bit individually with men and women. And I'm about to launch an 8-week course online called Empowered Loving that's for couples online that I'm going to launch pretty soon. In the next week or two, it's going to go live. And as far as the promoting of it, and it'll be happening in February and March.
And then people can also book private sessions with you. Even if they're not in Maui, they can work with you online.
Absolutely. And usually I do a free session with people, an intro session, just to meet and see if, because I have a pretty good full schedule often. So I like to offer people a free session and just see if there's a resonance for us, which you and I did, Amy, I think.
I know. And I was sold on you after that session. I was like, he's amazing.
Yeah. I really like it because it gets rid of any of the hesitance around money and am I going to invest. It's more like, let's have a meeting and let's have an experience of each other. And let me see if I could support you a little bit now and see if what I offer would resonate for you. And so you can link that on my website. Right on my homepage, it's offered there, and people can schedule right now if they want.
Great, yeah, it's right on the homepage. It's Shems Heartwell, and again, it's HEART, Heartwell.com. And is there anywhere else people can find you? Just go right to the website. Any other?
That's the best place. I mean, I'm on Facebook under Empowered Loving.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And Essential Masculine. I have 2 Facebook pages because I've been doing more and more men's work.
Great. That's much, much needed. It's something that we're really, really passionate about. I mean, of course, empowered loving for everyone, but for men's work, I think it's really wonderful to see another strong masculine ally who's helping men to tap into their vulnerability and their strength through vulnerability. So thank you for doing that work. We really appreciate it over here at Shameless Sex.
Yeah, thanks. Well, maybe next time we could talk about sex.
Oh, yeah. Sex. And
that'd be juicy, too.
Yeah, definitely. Let's do that. Now, next time we'll do it. Yeah, we have a lot of we did a poll with our listeners, and they're really into communication and relationship skills, but they also are really, really into sexual mastery and how to be a great lover. So that could be another topic.
Speaking inarguable truth is actually a really great way to get ourselves into our body to move towards more sexual intimacy and connection. It's a very wonderful step in that direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it actually is part of the sexual mastery. If we can actually feel our bodies and speak through our bodies and for our bodies, then we said that it's like ninja business, sexual ninja.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, Shems, for taking the time to come onto Shameless Sex, and I'm going to let April take us out as well.
Hello, Shems.
Yes.
We really appreciate your time, and hopefully, I know Amy's been out to visit you in Maui recently, but if you come and hang out with us in Santa Cruz.
I was just there.
Oh,
for a couple weeks. Yeah.
We don't have waterfalls. We've got some other cool stuff.
Waterfalls?
Oh, we do?
Yeah, Berry Creek Falls.
Oh, shit.
Santa Cruz is one of my hometowns, so I absolutely love Santa Cruz.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you. Thank you for the valuable information. And I want to reach out and thank all of our listeners every week. We see you every Tuesday. We love you. Remember, you can rate us on iTunes. We're now available on Spotify. You can download us on our website, shamelesssex.com. We've got great resources. You can always write us an email if you have sex questions or any questions, empowerment questions. Our website's a great resource. You can email us at shamelesssexpodcast@gmail.com. And we really love you, listeners. So thank you for tuning in every Tuesday. And ciao for now.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, people.
It's sex question time. Woo! And we have a lot of them. How many do you have?
I think I have 2 that you don't see. So 2. And then you have 4.
No, I have 2. I have 2. No, I have 3. Okay. And some of them are going to be quick, but thank you everyone for your sex questions. We love them. And thank you for being patient with us as we answer them over time because we is busy. So, but we love them. Please don't think that we don't love you. And we love when you send them in. And if we miss any of your questions, we're sorry about that. We're pretty sure we're getting all of them. So if you feel like it's been a month or 2 and yours hasn't been answered, feel free to resend it to us again because we want to dive in because it's fun. Okay, so here we go. Woo! So I'll start with one, then you'll go. Good? Sure. Okay, cool. So Kay asks, and again, we're keeping the names anonymous. What different porn sites do you recommend? I would love to learn more about sustainable porn. I know the industry can be pretty fucked up, and sometimes the workers aren't always getting paid the way they deserve. Yes, this is very true in the porn industry. A lot of your mainstream porn, isn't porn actually, it was down in Van Nuys, and it still is down in LA, but isn't a lot of moving to Georgia? Isn't that true? Did you hear that? Like it's cheaper for them to do.
Well, they tried to pass that condom law for a while, where in California, if you filmed porn, but that failed. Like it did pass, and then it just they actually had to go back to the legislator, and so it didn't pass. But I think that they still film 99% of all the porns filmed in LA.
Okay. Yeah, I heard the numbers I heard before was like 90% at one point, but I heard that some of it was going to Georgia, but I could be wrong. But anyways, that's not what you were asking.
She's talking about, or they're talking about
where they're getting paid and sustainable.
Right. And I believe, from what I know, and if you're actually paid by one of the big film production companies, they are paid well, the performers. So if you're thinking about the mainstream artists, they are paid well. I know that. I go to the Porn Awards every year. You don't really go, Amy, but they are usually pretty stoked and when they accept their awards. And I don't know how much they're making, but I think when you're going on some of this free websites where it's a lot of amateur porn, those are the folks that aren't really getting paid well.
Yeah.
Or at all.
Yeah, and you know, if you go to the porn, actually there's actually porn stars who have their own production companies now, like Joanna Angel and what is that one woman that, oh my God, I absolutely love her work too. She's got the tattoos. Oh, they actually all have to. Belladonna. Yeah, Belladonna.
She retired though.
Oh, she did, but she has her own production company. And yeah, so there's a lot more like women-owned, women-directed, and I don't know if that's up your alley, but I would imagine that the treatment of their fellow women porn stars would be a little bit more fair. And like April said, the higher pay. And then there's also independent companies if you're into queer porn. There's Pink and White Productions, and they do the Crash Pad series. And there's a lot of really great stuff coming out of that company in terms of the way that the workers are treated, and they have a lot more say in what's going on there, and a lot more love and ethics, fair ethics going on there as well.
But I think the probably the least sustainable porn available is the mainstream YouPorn, X-Hamster, those sites. I don't believe a lot of those folks are making very much money.
Well, let's talk about sustainable here. When porn became free on the internet and people stopped buying it, like you're not supporting them. So yeah, you're not supporting the porn stars. So that would be one thing. If you want to make porn more sustainable so that the workers actually get paid fairly, then perhaps find sites where you can actually contribute to them getting paid, as opposed to, then there's like your distributor sites that have nothing to do with them getting paid, but sites that are the direct production company where you can actually download or watch from them, then I would imagine that would help to support the industry. And of course, it's probably going to some sleazy person who's at the top of the pyramid, but just I think that's something to look at when we get stuff for free. Whether it's music or pornography or movies or whatever it is, we are not supporting the actual production that is behind it. And I do like my free stuff, but just to consider. All right, what you got, April?
This is actually, I think, a really interesting and / great question, because surprisingly, as much as we go around the world and think that there are a lot of conscious beings out there that are in tune and knowledgeable about sex because they're having it for a long time, they still have this question. And so this comes from Anonymous. And the question is this. So as I have recently become of legal age and I look forward to my first sexual experience, I was thinking about STDs. Specifically, if there is any way to detect them other than contracting them. I don't mean in-depth testing of your partner. I mean determining the presence of an STD upon looking, touching, smelling, and or tasting your partner's genitals. XO, a listener. So I want to say something to this because I got a message from my friend. Shout out to my friend in Nashville who sent me a voicemail because she had gone to the doctor in Nashville and she was like, I want a full STD screening. all of it. And the doctor said, okay, but we don't screen for HPV or herpes anymore because everybody has it. Her words, the doctor's words. So she thought that was insanity and was like, no, I want to be screened. And the doctor was like, there's no way we can do it. Everybody has it. If you've been sexually active after 1991 or something, she said, you have it, which is, I was in shock too. So that being said, I don't know if that's a commonality, if that's just specific to the state, but to answer this question, you cannot tell if someone has an STD just by looking at them or tasting their genitals, or that is not the case. Or if they're quote unquote, using quotation marks, clean. I've had people, past partners, say, I like that didn't want to use a condom with me. I only slept with clean people. And I was like, whoa, wait a second here. What does that mean? How do you know? Have you been tested? And it was always like a statement of, no, how could I don't ever sleep with dirty people. And because I know for a fact, 1 out of 2, I think, people have herpes, genital or type, what is it? Not HPV1, HSV1 or HSV2, which is like the mouth versus genitals. So 9 times out of 10, even if they don't show symptoms or signs of it, they're still a carrier. Same with HPV. There's no test for the penis owners to test for HPV. The only time they can test positive is if you have a pap smear and it's abnormal. So that, which is really intense. So the answer to the question is no. The obvious solution, I think, for you listener with this question is to get tested regularly and use protection as often as you can. I know that sounds like the old kind of solution that you hear in gym class in high school, but condoms are a great resource to protect. If you're wanting to be fluid bonded with your partner, then get tested. But a lot of times, STDs won't show up until 3 months after the fluid was exchanged, just so you know. Amy, I'm sure you have a lot to add to this.
Yeah. Well, HPV, there's so many different forms, and there's HPV that you can actually see, which kind of looks like little warts on the genitals, and then there's HPV that you cannot see. So yeah, I mean, there. Just by what was it, taste, touch, and smell or something like that, to be able to see if someone has an STD just by looking. Yeah, there's a lot that can hide without you being able to actually see it, and sometimes you can see little bumps and sores. And spoken as someone who made out with someone who had a sore on their lip when they were 18 and went with it, and then got a gnarly cold sore virus on my lip. Which I now have under control, and it took me about 10 years to kind of figure out how to help it to go dormant and not haunt my life. If you see something, I would ask about it, and but don't rely on the fact that you should be able to see it, or that the idea that they're clean. You know, this person that I got this cold sore virus from told me that it was a sun blister. It was not. It was lip herpes. And so here I am, and this is my horror story for you. And I like what April said that about condoms being available. And we like to teach from a harm reduction approach, in that you can choose what you want and take whatever risks you want. And condoms are so only so effective, and they don't cover all of the skin. There's some parts of you that can still be exposed.
Herpes is actually contracted not through bodily fluid exchange. It's actually contracted skin-to-skin contact. So even if you're with someone and you use a condom, you can still get herpes. And I think there's another STD too. It's not a sexy topic, but it's very real. Herpes has been around for 2,500 years. It was called, and if you look at the origin of it, herpes, it's like annoyance in Greek or something, because like the Grecians had it and they called it like the lesion of annoyance, something like this.
It is pretty annoying. It's a pain in the ass. It's super annoying. And if you have it on your ass, it literally is a pain in your ass. I don't have that one, but I have it on my lip, and that is just really obnoxious.
We also did a podcast with Reed Mahalko about casual sex, and one of the things, I think it was number 5, you can check into that if you want to start having casual sex. It's really cool to be with partners that you can be really open and honest with, and sort of share information with, if that person is living their life with integrity. Hopefully they'll be honest with you as well if you are honest with them.
Yeah, so moral of the story, don't rely on what you can see or touch to or someone's story of I'm clean, I'm all good, and that in itself, and that person might not even know what they have. And if you do feel something, I would question it and don't just go with it.
And if you're fluid bonded with them or you're choosing to be fluid bonded with them, ask them to get a test and get a test yourself and see what's up. They have it all online now, so you can actually get screened, and then they can pull it up on their phone, and you can check out the results. I've showed people mine.
And there's a lot of affordable testing out there. Testing doesn't have to be extremely expensive if you are lower income, and depending on where you live, there's places like Planned Parenthood and various clinics that can help you out. Okay, here's another one. So this is from two people, and we're going to call them A and J. So they are 23-year-old straight females. They have let us know they've been listening to our podcast, and they just moved to a new city. They're doing the single city life. They've had multiple relationships, some lasting a night, some a few months, and they are working on communicating their intentions in the most effective way. Obviously, your podcast, Shameless Sex, has been a great resource during this journey, but we're wondering if you have any recommendations on books or other podcasts that focus specifically on what we're going through. Also, we're both in managerial positions, boss queens in the making, in our desired fields, and are looking for resources that can help us with the challenges that come with being a female in an authoritative role. If you have any suggestions, that would be wonderful. Yay, boss queens in the making. April has a lot to share with you about books on boss queen business because that's her specialty. So it sounds like you're looking kind of more for female empowerment, single in the city. So aside from our podcast, there are a lot of other really great podcasts that can be empowering. I personally like to listen to a diverse array of podcasts that aren't even necessarily related to sexuality, but they just push my mind. So I'm just this is not even exactly related to what you asked, but I'm gonna tell you some of my favorite podcasts. And I really like Tangentially Speaking. That's by Chris Ryan, who wrote the book Sex at Dawn. And he just talks to all kinds of different people about all kinds of different things. But I always learn in that podcast. And there is actually a lot about sexuality in there. And dating, relationship patterns and behavior. I also love Aubrey Marcus's podcast. I am a huge fan. He's kind of more of like the consciousness expanding podcast. And we were inspired by Sex with Emily, and Sex with Emily is all about sexuality. She has a lot about dating, and she's definitely coming from a girl power perspective. So if you haven't checked out Sex with Emily yet, I suggest going and checking that one out. And we've asked people ask us this. Yes, we have heard of Guys We Fucked, the podcast, and because a lot of people ask us, or they think that we're similar, and we've heard Guys We Fucked, and they're awesome. They are two super awesome empowered women who are also comedians. So if you thought we were funny, they're really, really funny. And that's another kind of approach or angle. And I don't know how much they identify as sex educators. Do they? I don't really know if they do. They're comedians, or we're coming more from the sex education approach. So it really just depends on what you're looking for. But those are some podcast resources that I would recommend. And let's see, April, what do you have? What you got?
From a podcast standpoint, honestly, I'm in the same boat as you, Amy. I listen to like Joe Rogan. Shout out to my boy Joe, love him. And I listen to because of how I am pretty much, I consider myself a super nerd. I listen to Stuff You Should Know. It's random, useless knowledge that I love. It's like my party trick, random useless knowledge. So I can tell you all like animal group names. Like a group of giraffes is a tower of giraffes. A group of lions is what, Amy?
Pride.
Very good. A group of elephant is a memory. Anyway, that's fun. That could be a whole nother podcast, or come to a party where I'm attending and I will tell you them. So books though. For me, I think the books that really defined and helped shape my career for the better, and I'm still honestly growing and learning, and I am a sponge and I never want to stop learning. So, and with this podcast, I always, as well, I want to provide people the best tools possible. So I'm continuously striving to get out there and find what books are the best and the most useful to grow myself and my career. So I would suggest reading, starting with, now because you identify as two females, Lean In. It's by Sheryl Sandberg. Wonderful, amazing. I can't even tell you all the glorious adjectives I have for that book. It really changed my life in a lot of ways. So I not even if you're a woman, as a man, you could read it as well. And I think I've talked about it before on a podcast. Another one is Good to Great. It's by Jim Collins. I think I've referenced it as well. It's a really epic book for running a company and making your company go from good to great, or what defines and differentiates those two things. And it's very resource heavy, and they did a lot of research, 11 years of research, to figure out why some companies succeed and others fail. But it's really great for management because it has just excellent tools. One that we talked about a little bit today with Shems on the podcast was Conscious Business by Fred Kaufman. And that book was actually referenced on Lean In. And because they have Google and Facebook, all of those folks are recommended to read these books. And Fred Kaufman does seminars with really high top-powered executives in these multi-million-dollar positions. So I was trying to tap into that. Like, well, how is that a success? And what can I do to make the magic that Fred is promoting? And it's a really great book. And he's got a really sexy Argentinian accent that I like. I'm like, oh. The other one, so this book isn't really business oriented, but Amy recommended, I think we've talked about it, and I've listened to it. It's only an hour and a half on Audible, but I've listened to it probably 5 times. It's called Many Lives, Many Masters, and that's just a book that kind of, I thought, defined why I'm on the planet and what I want to do for others and what my purpose is, and kind of looking in and realizing that we're all one conscious entity, and just to continue to help people be better humans. Lastly, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I've talked about this book so much, but my boss recommended it to me, and so I read it and I love it. And then the other one, the last one, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is by Stephen Covey. He's kind of great. Slightly a bit religious for me and my liking, but I still like it. The book in general has best messages. Last but not least, The Hard Things About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz, who is a wonderful CEO. And that book is awesome. And he references all sorts of rap artists because he's inspired by hip hop artists, because a lot of them have come up from nothing to something. So, and I'm inspired by hip hop artists all the time. So that's just a side note, but that book is amazing. Just one more that I think will change your life in general. It's called How Will You Measure Your Life by Clayton Christensen. I've actually recommended this book to other people, and they've stopped me or wrote me or came up to me in a social scene and told me that beyond words that they could have for me, and thanking me for the recommendation because it also changed their life. So yes, that's a lot, but start reading every day. I do Audible, so I actually don't have to read, but I have someone read it to me. I'm reading right now, though, physically, which I've read before, Taking the War Out of Our Words. And that's helpful both in relationships and in the business world and in just everyday interactions with folks. So that's what I suggest. And power up, ladies. Like, good for you. I'm so impressed with you taking the time to write us, and also already identifying as boss queens and getting in tune with your sexuality and also with your sexual empowerment. So way to go. And we are on your team. So woohoo. And Amy and I are sharing a mic right now. So we're actually not interrupting each other at all, but maybe that is the key. But one of our mics just died. We're sad. We're going to have a burial for it. So that's it. Let me see. Amy will read another one.
Yeah, maybe sharing the mics. We just got this feedback from everyone. Like, Amy and April need to stop interrupting. We've got the feedback a number of times, and maybe just one mic is the way because we can't do it. Okay, Z from Australia asks, I am single, have been raised as an only child to a single mother, and haven't really developed the skills in dating or how to pick up with much success. I am an amateur DJ, so I spend a lot of my free time gigging at clubs, and would really love to hear your thoughts and advice on how to approach and meet more women, improve my dating game, and have ultimately more shameless sex. Ooh, I like your style. All right, Z. Well, I think we've talked about this on some past episodes. about dating. And one approach that I like to the dating game is to approach people without the goal of having sex with them or dating them, to just meet new people and make new friends, and approach it from that standpoint, so that there isn't that pressure of, oh my God, I'm not going to do it right. I'm going to say the wrong thing. I'm not going to get laid, blah, 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 blah. It also gets rid of the I'm just trying to get laid attitude, which, regardless of your gender, sometimes is not welcomed. And especially if you are a straight man picking up on women, if you're out there just on the prowl with that goal, it could really change your energy. So when you're out and about, you're clubbing or you're gigging at the club, and whatever you're doing, you're gigging, and you see someone that you might be interested in talking to, approach them as just that. I'm interested in getting to know you. I'm here to make new friends. You seem awesome. Or I don't know. I was just really drawn to you, and I'm just wondering what your story is, and have a conversation with them and get to know them from there. And then the bonus would be if you guys hit it off in a romantic way as well. So I think that's helpful, because pressure, nobody likes that. It doesn't help anyone, and people can pick up on that, and it really can stunt your ability to connect and reach out. And then with confidence, people are really attracted to confidence, but confidence you have to genuinely feel, and you don't want to fake it, because people can pick up on that as well. So if you can just approach things from a confident, I'm just here to meet new people standpoint, I think that is a really helpful thing. And I also love transparency. So as you start to get to know someone, hey, I'm just drawn to you and I would like to get to know you. Like, what's your story? I love that question. What's your story? What are you most passionate about? It's a really great opening questions for people. And if they don't like those questions, they're probably just not very deep, which happens. And then go from there. And then if you're starting to get this vibe, like, wow, I'm really liking this conversation, or you can let them know that, wow, this is feeling really good. Is this feeling really good for you? Like, I'd really love to spend some more time with you. Are you available to hang out for an hour tonight to get to know each other more? Or maybe we could set a time or date, and then the rest is history. So, easier said than done. And you just getting rid of the pressure and being transparent in an authentic way, I think can go work wonders.
I agree with you. I think a lot of times, what I've heard from some of my single friends is that they'll be in a new dating situation with someone, and the person always just talks about themselves, and they don't ask a lot of questions. And I'm not saying interview someone where you're like giving them the interrogation, but ask some questions and then give them information about you if they're not asking a lot of questions. But it's a really big turn on for people to talk about themselves. In my experience in sales, for instance, whenever I'm at a trade show, I ask people about how's your family, if I know they have a family, or how are your kids? I'll try to remember their kids' names. Now, if it's a totally fresh situation where you don't know, you have to ask them, as Amy said, ask them about what they're passionate about, or have you taken any cool trips lately? Like really, really sometimes ambiguous, broad questions, and then you can find a common ground with them and then continue on. And it is communication sort of 101 and socializing 101, but people do love to be asked questions. I tend to I over ask questions sometimes where I feel like, I don't know, I try to stop myself. I had this ex-boyfriend in college that said to me, the same guy that did the dick lifts. Remember, I've talked about him, the same guy. He was like, all you do is ask me questions all the time. What, don't you have any opinions of your own? I'm like, of course I do, but I'm just trying to make conversation. And one good practice, though, is to take the information and tune in and take a minute and not just rattle off questions like I tend to do when I get nervous. So just really tune in with yourself and be yourself. I know that sounds so hard, but take deep breaths. And obviously, it's good to have a cocktail or two. If you don't drink, then just be yourself. But probably shy away from too many cocktails, because then you can just be a sloppy mess. But I like Amy's suggestion of kind of put yourself out there. There's always rejection on the table. You have to remember that, especially in the dating world. But rejection can teach you some things from time to time. And I know like a lot of rejection sometimes hurts and you think something's wrong with you, but honestly, that's just not the right person and the right connection to have. So always continue to do the self-work and love yourself, and you'll draw in exactly what you want to draw in. and exactly what magnetically is charging you, even if you don't see it right away. That's my suggestion for you, Z in Australia. Doing the DJ thing. I'm starting to feel a little better with my tummy. Just a little bit. I think I slammed that kombucha. I had a tummy issue that I talked about, but it's starting to feel better. And somebody came to my house issuing a subpoena during this podcast recording, I guess, to appear in a court, and they don't live here, and I had to show my ID, so that also happened. That was kind of exciting. All while we were recording. Okay. So hopefully that answered your question. This is the final question of the day. So this comes from a person who's 33 years old, they told us, who's married. And sorry, I'm opening up my phone. So there we go. I changed my password. I forgot it. So she identifies as being a she. That's her preferred pronoun. I have a question about orgasms. I'm 33 and I've never had a G-spot orgasm. I have only had them via clit stimulation. My husband and I are both pretty adventurous in the bedroom, and I want to know what advice you have for a person like me that wants to have a great G-spot orgasm but doesn't know how to have one. Thank you, Amy.
And she's handing it over to me. G-spot orgasms. All right. This is going to be the Cliff Notes version. So, everyone, the clitoris. The clitoris is wonderful. The clitoris is responsible. It's actually the only body part that is only job is to provide pleasure. So the clitoris is badass. It has about 8,000 nerve endings as compared to 4,000 approximately of the penis. Woo, go clitoris. The clitoris is your best friend when you are pleasing the vulva, and the clitoris is more than meets the eye. It is not just a little teeny nub that sticks out, and that's all the clitoris is. There is a whole shaft that extends back behind the hood, and then there's legs that actually connect from the shaft down behind the labia, so it looks almost like this wishbone structure. There's a lot going on there. In my opinion, and they're not doing a lot of research on female anatomy to prove anything, nor do I necessarily believe in scientific research these days to prove anything. I believe in experience. And in my opinion, the clitoris extends back. That tissue connects to the urethral sponge, which is what surrounds the urethra that connects up to your bladder. And it is all connected, sharing all these lovely nerve endings. And so when you're stimulating G-spot, to me, you are stimulating the back end of the clitoris. So they're all connected. This is why if you take a really powerful vibrator like the magic wand that April loves and you put it on your clitoris, it vibrates so powerfully that it will vibrate and can actually make you ejaculate because it vibrates the G-spot from the outside of your body. So that's really, really powerful. So this is my long-winded version of, actually not that long-winded, I've been more long-winded before. It doesn't have to all be about the G-spot. If you want to have internal orgasms or G-spot orgasms, incorporate some external play at the same time or a lot of it before. And about 80% of female-bodied folks are having the orgasms from clitoral stimulation, either on its own or combining it with other things and not from penetration alone. This is really common, and especially if your partner who has a penis learned how to have sex from pornography, which is a lot of thrusting and in and out movements that miss a lot of the good spots and don't exactly put enough pressure on the G-spot in the way that you want it, or maybe put too much pressure on it, or it completely misses the clitoral structure that loves all the yummy touch. This is an opportunity to relearn how to have sex, how to touch, how to play. No one is broken. It's not anyone's fault. This is what we've been taught, and this is just what people are practicing, and this is not necessarily accurate in terms of what bodies like, especially when it comes to female bodies. So practice new forms of touch, incorporate clitoral play. If you want to practice G-spot stimulation, I would suggest doing it with fingers and not with cocks. So do it with fingers. Have start to learn more about G-spot stimulation, or maybe from a tantric perspective, sacred spot touch. Because if you just experience a lot of thrusting, your G-spot might be turned off or kind of numb from it not feeling so good and it turning off. So experiment with fingers, your own fingers or that of your partner's, with really slow, soft pressure on the G-spot. So not that fingering, milking, no, not finger banging. We're talking about really slow, and then go slower than that, like slower than slow, and just touching, that kind of come hither motion, or even a tapping on the G-spot, or maybe even just hanging out and holding it. Wake it up. Try something new. Slow down. And it's a practice. So it might not be one time of having your G-spot touched in a new way that feels more juicy and vibrant. That might not wake it up. It might be a practice to wake it up. And that will also mean that when you start incorporating that into your sex play, your sex might now need to be slower and softer as a means of touching the G-spot in the way it really wants to be touched. And I'm not anti-thrusting and hard and fast. I think that it serves a purpose at a certain time, but it's not most of the time. That's for me, it's like when the body's really warmed up or someone's just craving, like, I want you to fuck me right now. Serves that purpose. It's not what sex should always look like, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. But I know a lot of other people that agree. So yeah, I think I'm going to leave it at that because I could talk literally. I teach whole workshops on this that are an hour and a half. So really starting with that and start educating yourself about some new ways of touching and then practicing them with your partner and asking them to touch your G-spot in a slow, intentional way with no goals. Tonight, will you give me a full body massage and then massage my external vulva and then just lightly massage my G-spot? And here's some online videos of how to do that, which you can totally Google. And not the pornographic ones where they're just like milking it. And let's see what happens. No goals. If I don't have an orgasm, all good. If I do, woo, bonus. Yay. Good for you. I'm excited for you. Who knows? Maybe you'll start ejaculating all over the place too. I'm super excited for that. And April gets a waterproof blanket for Christmas. It's past Christmas, but my mom was like, I heard on the podcast that April wanted a waterproof blanket. Tell her to come down to Pure Pleasure and I'll give her one right when she comes in. So my mom and I, we own Pure Pleasure together. And so she's, April had to change her sheets today because she ejaculated all over the place. No wonder you're feeling so depleted. You ejaculated all over the place.
I actually didn't come fully. I just had a lot of fluid and then I didn't finish. I wasn't feeling well. I was in my stomach. I was like, blah, blah, blah. I was like, yeah, we stopped.
Probably not the time to. Yeah. She's like, I need an orgasm a day, keeps the doctor away. And now she's feeling great. So maybe there's some truth to it. All right, everyone. That is the end of our sex questions. It feels good to get through them. We're both type A, so it feels good to get organized. And again, send us more sex questions. We absolutely love them, and we love you. Don't forget to head on over to our website at shamelesssex.com for more. And for 15% off of some of our favorite sex toys, use coupon code SHAMELESSPP in all caps at purepleasureshop.com.